and thanks for the opportunity to speak with you. And I'm sorry that I'm not able to be there in person. I know your discussion today is very much focused on the future, which is timely because we are living in an era of challenges that are becoming increasingly complex. In our industry alone, we can look to the threats posed by our changing climate, which are putting people and property at greater risk, and by advances in technology and the accelerated digitization of the world, which are leading to an increase in cyber attacks and creating new vulnerabilities for our customers. The numbers show the scope of the challenges on both fronts. On natural disasters, many of them influenced by climate change, this resulted in global losses of more than $350 billion last year. Floods, wildfire, extreme heat. The risks may vary depending on where you live, but the reality is that changing patterns are apparent the world over. And threats are intensifying, with most countries still struggling to adapt to these new climate-related challenges. On cyber, we see ransomware attacks growing at a startling pace, up 170% between 2019 and 2020 and continuing to increase. Average remediation costs rose by 145% in 2021. And that doesn't even get into the costs related to cyber-initiated theft and other technology-related crimes. Together, these challenges are contributing to a new and growing protection gap. And that should be very concerning to us, both from an operational and reputational perspective. People rely on us to protect them, their families, and their property. We constantly need to demonstrate both our reliability and our relevance. So it's essential that we act and be seen to act in a way that demonstrates our commitment to helping our customers understand and adapt to new trends and growing risks. Protection gaps are by no means a new phenomena in our business. For instance, I'm speaking to you from North America, where there has long existed a gap between how much life insurance people buy and how much they are likely to need. For some, that gap can lead to catastrophic financial challenges. Insurers work hard to try and make certain that more people are protected. But according to Swiss Re, we're still looking at a $12 trillion mortality protection gap in the United States alone, and more than $100 trillion globally. In terms of weather events and other disasters, Swiss Re tells us that the global protection gap was $161 billion in 2021, up more than 40% from the previous year. This is putting an increased burden on individuals and on public treasuries. It's a burden that is likely to continue to grow in the coming years, especially in the expanding cities and densely populated areas that are exposed to rising temperatures and heavier precipitation. We can expect much the same on the cyber front, as malicious forces target a wider range of companies and organizations. So how do we begin to close a protection gap? Well, first, we need to fully understand the scope and nature of the challenge we face. That's why GFIA has commissioned a comprehensive global study. It will define and quantify the protection gap, taking into account natural catastrophes, cyber threats, and retirement. What makes this study unique is its scope. Few studies focus on gaps in both life and P&C markets. The study is already well underway, and we expect to see a final report before the end of the year. But even as that work continues, we can begin to make a collective effort to better understand which levers will result in meaningful progress towards closing gaps. And one of the most effective ways to do that is to examine and learn from best practices and case studies. With that in mind, let's consider the protection gap in retirement savings and how insurers are helping to address it in the US. Saving for retirement has been a growing challenge, especially in disadvantaged communities. More people are living paycheck to paycheck, finding it hard, if not impossible, to save for the long term. This retirement gap has only grown since the onset of the pandemic. But spurred on by the insurance industry, new legislation is making it possible for more people to achieve a financially secure retirement. It does this by reducing barriers to long-term saving and improving access to workplace retirement plans. People will have more tools at their disposal to build their savings over years and decades. There is, of course, much more to do, more ways to help people achieve the retirement they can imagine. But every step forward counts. These recent changes show how the insurance industry, working with elected officials, is helping to close the protection gap on retirement savings. Meanwhile, insurers have put in place new strategies to reach out to underserved communities and begin to address the particular challenging gaps that affect minorities. Now, here's one other case study, this one from here in Canada. One of the growing challenges we've been experiencing across our country is flooding. More severe weather events are leading to more homes and businesses being at risk. And to be blunt about it, we are seeing more catastrophes more often. As an industry, we've therefore been encouraging better land use and planning and smarter decisions when it comes to rebuilding or relocating. But we've also put a priority on working with government to help make flood insurance available and affordable, and to further solidify the industry as a trusted partner with government in the protection of Canadians at high risk of flooding. Right now, we're focusing on about 800,000 homes. These are places that are at such a high risk for flooding that private insurance is either unavailable or, for most, unaffordable. I see this as a good example of how the private and public sectors can come together in partnership to address an emerging challenge. In this case, a gap between the insurance that's available and the insurance that's needed. And sometimes closing that kind of a gap is beyond the ability of the insurance industry on its own. And that's when a joint effort of government and insurers makes sense for all concerned. And we ourselves have learned and benefited from the experiences of our colleagues in the UK and France, which goes to show how a focus on best practices can help multiply the positive impact of smart ideas. Now, just to be clear, the partnership on flood that we're pursuing here in Canada is intended as a temporary measure. It's meant to buy us some time as other public policy measures are put in place to more concretely adapt to the impacts of our changing climate. Things like better flood maps to identify risk, new zoning measures to reduce or eliminate buildings on floodplains, and meaningful initiatives to increase property level and community level resilience to flooding and to climate change more broadly. As we look to the future and to the challenges that are likely to intensify, we have twin responsibilities as an industry. First, we must continue to do our part to protect people from risk, as we've always done, and educate them about new and growing threats. And secondly, we must reach out to governments and work in the public interest to close the protection gap through partnerships. Insurance is an essential tool, but it's not a panacea, especially in a time of evolving risk. We all have a role to play. When we come together, when we work in partnership, we better equip ourselves as a society not only to confront, but also to overcome the growing risk we face each day. Thank you very much, and best wishes for a successful conference.